There's another clap from me. Claps all around. Hi, my name is Jeremy. This is Red Beans Recording, and today we are doing something a little bit different. You can see on my table that I have a Novation Peak, and you probably are seeing on another table in another country that there is another Novation Peak, and that's because I'm test driving this Novation Peak to see if it's something that I like. And the Novation Peak you see on the other screen belongs to Foxhunt, who is in the UK, who is a sort of a Peak power user. He's on my Discord. He makes really cool complextro music, and he uses the Peak a lot in his production. So he offered to sort of walk me through some of the stuff he likes and some of the tips and tricks with the Peak after. I'm just going to call it the Peak. I can't keep this joke up. Some of the stuff that he likes about it. And yeah, we're just going to learn a little bit about it. From me, someone who's new to it, and from him, someone who is not new to it. So, hi, Foxhunt. How's it going?
Hello. It's going good.
It's a rainy Sunday here. How is it on your end?
It is also a very rainy Sunday.
Hooray!
So, at least that's something in common.
It's like we're in the same place. So you have used the Peak in a lot of your productions.
Yeah, I have.
How long have you had it?
Coming up on 2 years now. So this April, I'll have owned this unit for 2 years.
And you have a new album coming out.
I do.
It's called Unhallowed, and it's going to be out January 22nd. You said first it's going to start on Bandcamp, and then all the major services will follow that. How many tracks on the new album would you say that you used the Peak on?
I'd say all of them apart from like maybe one or two.
As somebody who uses, because you use a lot of in-the-box production as well.
Yeah.
The bass station also made an appearance in the album, I would imagine.
Yeah, it did. It appeared on a couple of tracks, but nowhere near as many as the Peak did.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you about is how do you use the Peak in the recording process, since it's not like a VST that you can just sort of like pull up and recall every time you open a session?
Well, like the short answer is I just treat it like any other sort of synthesizer that I would use. It's just another tool to my disposal. But in terms of like how I actually go about making a track with it is I normally make a sound that I kind of want in something like Serum. And then when I go to like finalize the track, I would make, the sound again in the Peak, but it normally ends up turning out slightly different to what it originally was, and most likely better than it originally was, just because you get like I spend more time working on the sound in the Peak than I would on something like Serum.
So you actually introduce it near the end of the process. I would always assume that you would start with it. So that's kind of interesting, and it actually makes a lot of sense. You're like, oh, I got this sound I really like, but I think it'll sound better on the Peak.
Yeah, I do that a lot with especially like chord sounds. In I think the second track there is this sort of pluck breakdown sort of in the middle of it, and that was just originally started out as Serum, then I re-recorded the MIDI into the Peak, and I think I got the patch somewhere that we can show off at some point. That's
super cool, and not to get away from the Peak, but is the same method with the bass station as well?
Yeah, well, it depends with the bass station, because I would use that for leads a lot, but I also use it for sort of like one-shot sounds and things like that. So with that, what I do is I probably just mess around on the dials and stuff and just record like a solid 5-minute sort of session of me just going crazy on some of the dials and see and just cut the bits out that I want to use.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Let's talk about the Peak itself, because
let me just load up
haven't yet.
Blank patches.
One of the cool things about the Peak that I like is up here in the upper left, you have a button that initializes the patch, and that is fucking fantastic. It's so nice just to be able to start with a blank slate and not have to faff about.
Yeah, it's good. You spend like maybe 5-10 minutes working on a sound, and you're just like, I don't feel this. But you realize, oh, I'm in the middle of my, bank of patches, and if I want to get to, an init pack, you have to scroll all the way up, but you got a button which just... And another good button is the one next to it, the compare button, so you can compare your current patch with the previous one.
Oh, that's really cool. I haven't used that yet. I've made like maybe 4 patches on this thing so far, and ran into, without having read the manual, which is actually pretty cool that you can just jump in. It's a very, very easy synth to like get to know, especially if you've used any digital synth that combines a front panel with a mod matrix, which we'll get into. So it's an 8-voice virtual analog synthesizer.
Well, you say virtual analog, but only the oscillators are virtual analog. All the effects, well, I think the effects are digital, but the amplifiers, the envelopes, the LFO, the filter, that is all analog.
You ended with like I think probably the most important analog part, which would be the filter.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds really good. And yes, the overdrive and distortion that you have access to on the front panel are both analog, and maybe the amplifiers too. I'm not 100% sure. And the oscillators are somewhat special too. But the oscillators are FPGAs, which are field programmable gate array. They call them Oxford oscillators. They are created in such a way that sort of steps away from the kind of quantization or stepping that you would get from a typical digital virtual analog oscillator. So that's cool. It sounds good. It sounds real damn good. So we have a patch. What would be sort of like the first thing that you would reach for when you're making a patch for yourself on this, assuming that you were starting from scratch?
Yeah, first thing I would honestly reach for is the filter, because that is what's going to shape the sound really. And most of the time, like, I know what kind of sound I want to go in and make, so the filter is what's going to be, make me able to do that. So if I want to make a pluck, I go frequency down, envelope depth up, just get some decay on that. And then from there, I can say, okay, how do I want the pluck to sound? So that's when I'd go back to the oscillator section and start bringing things in and out and changing types.
Just to go over what we have on the oscillators, range is the initial pitch. I'm pressing keys now. Sorry, you can't hear that. We have a coarse volume that goes up and down an octave, a fine, and then we have our wave shape, which goes from sine to triangle to saw to square, and then more, which is how many wavetables do they have in this thing now? I think it's like 40 something.
It's about 47 or something like that.
When you're in more, you get access to all the wavetables, which we'll get into probably soon. Then they have decided to normal some of these controls to modulating sources already. So each oscillator has the ability to, on the front panel, go for mod 2 depth, LFO 2 depth, and then shape amount, which is dope on this thing, because you would think of shape as sort of maybe like your pulse width modulation control for like a square wave, but they've actually done, you can actually shape all of the waves. So that's a sign that I'm pressing right now. You can try it too, I guess. Like being able to like shape a sine wave to have some distortion on either side is really cool. It actually introduces some harmonics to the sine wave. And then in square, you get traditional pulse width modulation, and like on saw,
Nick Bat would be happy.
Nick Bat is so stoked right now. His ears are ringing since we're talking about it. And then in more, you get the ability to travel through the wavetable that you've selected. Is that a accurate way of describing it?
That is an accurate description. I'm assuming a lot of viewers have used Serum, and it is basically exactly the same as how it works in Serum. You have a wavetable, and it changes based on how much you change the shape amount.
Yeah. On shape amount, you can there's 3 options: manual, mod envelope 1, and LFO 1. So you can shape this thing manually, or you can have mod envelope 1, which is over here. You can select between 2 mod envelopes, and then LFO 1. They're all sort of normal, and you can choose this and turn it up if you want. And this is just what's normal on the front panel. You can go into the mod matrix and set whatever you want. What would you do next?
That's when I'd start going into the effects panels. So if I want to make a monophonic pluck, I would not touch the chorus section, because I would just go straight to the voices, all 8 on, bit of G-tune. The chorus, I find, if you put it on like a full 8-voice, monophonic thing, it can distort the sound a little too much, especially if you're turning up the D-tune. And also, one good thing about the voice section is if you're going full unison, all 8 voices, you can spread the voices in the stereo field. So you can have, with it all the way up, you probably have like 2 voices, then 2 voices. And this is just, it really like widens the sound by quite a lot.
Up at the top here, there's a menu, and it's normally on patch, which shows you like, where you are in the patch category, shit like that. But then you can hit oscillator, envelope, LFO, ARP clock, mod, voice, FX, or settings. So you're in Osc.
So I go to voice, actually. I go to voice.
Oh, hey.
And then you just scroll all the way left, and it should bring up unison, detune, and spread.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, cool. Let me turn down my chorus. So I don't have any uni spread on right now. Oh, that's nice. And you can see that having done this, we have all 8 voices being activated at the same time. That's huge, dude. That's...
And you can make some really nice sort of bass plucks with this, and especially you start turning up the distortion.
Ooh, let's try that. Oh my god, that's huge. It actually almost sounds like the bass station at this point, minus the stereo, or plus stereo, which is really cool. Novation synths definitely have a sort of a character to them, which on the Peak is just taken to like massive levels.
Yeah, so if I take my unison back down and then sort of bring in some reverb maybe. Oh, that is way too low an octave for me to be making some nice plucks. Maybe it's...
Oh yeah, that's nice. We have 3 types of chorus. I haven't actually looked at the manual to figure out what each individual one is.
I mean, neither have I, to be honest. The only time, like I said to you on Discord, the only time I ever look at the manual for the Peak is to just find out MIDI CC values. And that's that's really just a sort of testament as to how easy it is to use. It's all just there. You can... Yeah, so in a lot of the menus, there are actually like a secondary... I'll show it off in the mod matrix just as a sort of thing, but... there's often a secondary function to each individual button. So say in the mod matrix, you've got 2 input sources, and the way you just select through them is you just press the button.
Yeah, I'm noticing that right now. On the front panel of the Peak, certain things are normal to certain modulation sources, and you can just turn up a knob, and then you have that modulating it. Like the filter has, you can actually choose amp or mod 1 to turn up the envelope modulation. It has LFO normaled, and then each oscillator has some pitch modulation and shape modulation for the waveform normaled as well, which is cool. But if you want to get weirder, or not even that weird, if you want to like just make your sound more expressive or something like that, you go into the mod matrix by clicking the mod button.
So you've got 16 mod slots, but there's also some dedicated ones in the effects section. So if you scroll all the way along, you get 4 different effects mod slots. So essentially you have 20, but 4 of them are only used for the effects section.
Why don't you show us like what a modulation patch would look like, either with both or with one?
Yeah, so I'll just initialize the patch just so I can just show this on the filter without touching any of the front panel stuff. So if I turn the filter all the way down, so you've got your basic wave, you can go to the mod matrix, say I want to apply animate button. So these 2 little buttons you can set to do things. They're just like an on or off switch for different stuff. So I could say animate 1, destination, filter, frequency, turn that up to 63. So when I hold it down.
Oh, that's rad. All right, beautiful. Okay, so obviously, let's see what kind of sources that we have for the modulation. Mod wheel, aftertouch, expression pedal, breath pedal. I've never used a breath pedal. Velocity keyboard, LFO.
If you've got one, it's supported.
I do like the way that each of the LFOs, you can choose a cross 0 positive or negative, or just positive. So like for right now, we have our frequency all the way down at the bottom. And if I chose plus minus for the LFO, it's not really going to go that high up. But if I just choose plus, I have the ability of it just going up from where the lowest point of that setting is at that point, which I think is a cool option. So one of the things that I wanted to do that I couldn't do, and I'd love for you to show me how, because I still haven't tried doing this, is for like that classic sort of funk lead, affect like the amount of an LFO to pitch, so that when you open up the mod wheel, you get like the open frequency, but also like a little bit of warble.
A few moments later.
Oh wait, there it is. We got it. LFO 2 rate. All right, and then mod will turn this down, the depth. All right, so that works. Wonderful. Okay, so the answer was mod wheel to LFO, and then adjust flavor. So now we have a little bit of vibrato at the end of our, when we turn up the mod wheel. Well, now that we've completely demystified the mod matrix, one is more of a traditional, and two, actually, this is one of those things where I haven't looked in the manual to really know what the difference is. But I do know that you do have additional controls over the effects in terms of mod rate, mod depth for things like the reverb. So there is a bit of modulation going on in the reverb. Pre-delay, low frequency and high frequency damp. You can actually change the slew rate of the delay. So as the delay is changing time, if you modded that, like you could do really short delay times and mod them and sort of almost get a fake car plus strong thing going on. And then the delay has a left-right ratio, so you can ping pong it in different ratios, which is really cool. So you can get a nice stereo delay there. Let's see if we can jet through the rest of the normal controls and then spend a little bit of time on the wavetables. The filter has 3 modes: low pass, high pass, and band pass.
You also get your 12 dB and 24 dB per octave as well. You pre-filter drive here, but actually if you go into the oscillator settings, you can... Oh no, was it in voice? I know it's in one of these. There you are, voice. At the very end, you've got post-filter drive as well, so you can affect the drive going into the filter and going out of the filter, and that's before it even hits the distortion knob. So you've essentially got 3 stages where you're going to be able to distort your sound.
And I've heard that you do enjoy turning all the distortions up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just... find a patch that I've absolutely ruined.
Give it to us. Oh my god, that is fucking filthy.
And the filter on this is also self-resonant.
Oh, awesome. I haven't tried that yet. I'm not going to do it right now because I don't want to break everyone's earballs, but I also love that you can do filter diverge in the voice section, which is cool. In the oscillator section, you can set diverge and drift, and you explain this to me. Why don't you hit it again, because I can't remember exactly what the difference between...
So, essentially, think of it like you've got an old broken synthesizer, and if I go into the diverge here, so drift would be as if you had like an invisible LFO on the pitch of your oscillator, so...
Okay.
And you can sort of hear that there. That's me playing middle C, but it's not middle C. And diverge is every time you hit a note, it's going to be different. So that's not per note, but that's per voice. So if you're playing like a big sort of chord stack.
Oh, yeah.
And you sort of hear every time I hit that chord, it sounded slightly different. And that's because all the voices are doing slightly different things.
So just a really easy and cool way to thicken up your sound, or go for like full Boards of Canada, like warbly, broken tape sounds.
It doesn't go like deep enough for you to thicken up the sound, but in the oscillator settings, just for like your saw wave, for example, if I get my saw.
Oh yeah.
That is an easy way to thicken up your sound, just by changing the saw density, and that's just instant super saw. And that's before you add the other oscillators, and before you add more voices.
So we could stack 3 super dense saws and just get like the future bass sound if we wanted to. That saw density does not affect the amount of voices that are playing. It's like you can see on the voice thing here as I press down a chord. 4 notes equals 4 notes, so it's just a really nice way to get a big ass sound, and that's with some drift on.
And this is also where your sync controls is as well. And that is also able to be set up in the mod matrix, yeah.
Oh my god, that's fucking gigantic. I had the chorus up a little bit too, because why not? So last thing that I want to talk about on this is the wavetables, and then let's talk about like some of the patches on your album. So
the wavetables, in my opinion, is where this synthesizer shines more than anything available right now. I know like the Hydra synth is making a lot of waves, but it doesn't have the filter of the peak. It doesn't have the distortion of the peak. This is like intrinsic properties of this box. And you can really sort of get some interesting sounds, especially because in the mod matrix you have FM as well. So you can FM 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 1. And one thing you can do is if you're of the dubstep disposition, you can let me find one of these patches.
No, that's fine. We want that. Oh, holy shit. What is going on there? Okay, what the fuck? Walk us through this fucking patch, because I have not been able to make anything sound like that on the Peak. What is going on?
Oscillator 1 is a wavetable, and it is the voweled wavetable. That is getting sent as FM into Oscillator 2, which is a square wave, which is on a lower octave.
Range.
And that's got FM all the way up, and the FM for that is... that's set solid, although you can obviously change, like, set the FM to follow an envelope, but I haven't done it in this pitch. And then it's just a filter with a bit of resonance.
That is so cool. So we have 47 wavetables. Let me go back to Oscillator.
It's either 47 or 43. Either way, it's a really nice amount of wavetables. And the good thing about them is, like, even if you might not be able to find the sound you want, if you use the shape amount, chances are it's there. So if you find a wavetable and you're like, this is almost what I want, if you just play around with this, chances are you're going to find the exact sort of sound you want.
Literally, like, it's a table. Like, if you've used Serum, like, even when you land on the wavetable to select it in the oscillator, you're only hearing one small part of it, and the rest of it has to be explored with the shape knob. I'm going to have to experiment more with FM, because I think sending wavetables to other wavetables with FM would be a very cool thing to do.
You can get some pretty crazy sounds. Like, with wavetable FM, it can be potluck about what you get, but I like to FM a simple wave, sort of like what I've got on here. Oscillator 1 is FMing number 2. Oscillator 2 is more simple square wave, but number 1 is the sort of crazy wavetable. And I think that's quite high pitched as well, this one, so it's doing a lot of pitch modulation going on there.
Is there anything else before we start talking about your patches and your album a little bit more that you want to call out on this as something that you really like?
It's got an arpeggio. It's not a sequencer, but it's pretty good because you've got the key latch as well. So something that I've done before is I've done a techno track, and this is like the main sound in the techno track. And basically what I did is I turned key latch on, put some keys in, and then I just went to ham on the front panel and just played around and turned it into a banging techno track and stuck some bass station underneath it, because why not?
With that said, let's talk about Hallowed, your album coming out on January 22nd. How many tracks are there on?
There are 11 if you want to count the intro as a track, and if you don't want to count the last track as a whole EP.
Right, so the last track is 20 minutes long?
20 minutes and 4 seconds.
Orchestral arrangement / synth / what would you say would be your inspiration for that?
Inspiration for that would be bands like Dream Theater and Octavarium. That track Octavarium is fantastic, and that's kind of where I came from with that. And
then the rest of the album, so you make Complextro, which if people don't know is sort of an offshoot of electro house, I guess. Yeah. What else? How else would you call it?
I wouldn't actually say the focus is on the sound design, though it definitely helps. I would just say it's like if you made disco but also dubstep. It's very like rhythmic, very sort of the way the bass works with the drums is a bit more groovy than just like straight up 4 on the floor wobbles and stuff like that. But yeah, although actually only 2 tracks on the album count as Complextro.
Oh my god, you're branching out.
Yeah, I know. There is a harpsichord electronic hip hop track in there.
So how long have you been working on it?
I'd say about 7 months if you don't count one of the tracks, which I made ages ago. It was meant to be a part of a different album that I was working on, but I decided I didn't like that album, but I liked this one track, so I kept it.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about patches that you used and how you...
Yeah, so this was in one of the tracks. This is on CVX, which is referenced in the patch name there. And this was the sort of big, sort of growly bass which comes in.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
And it sort of plays that kind of line, but...
That's filthy as hell. I love that. Do you actually have a little bit of reverb or a delay going on there?
Yeah. So I actually do like to put some reverb on some of my basses just because it sort of puts them in a space. It doesn't sound so artificial.
Oh, that's nice.
And once again, that's all built-in reverb and delay and stuff. Yeah, what was this? That was probably an ARP somewhere. Oh, this is the one I was talking about earlier, where I've got the delay. You can actually hear it going off in the background. It's just subtle, but it's... Okay, I remember where I used this one. This one is in Witchcraft, and this plays the ARP during the drop. So Witchcraft is sort of my spin on Moonlight Sonata. I do like to sort of incorporate classical motifs in a few of my tracks. On my previous album, I basically did a complex show cover of Toccata and Fugue.
Oh man,
that kind of went well. But yeah, this one, it just sort of plays an ARP. And I think I do actually have the frequency up in the track. You can make some really sort of beautiful sounds just out of using the distortion as well. So if I move this down. Yeah, and that was featured in the Why Is Your release 1,000 Years Long. That was used in the breakdown of Witchcraft as well. That plays the chords under the sort of 808 sounding kick with all the orchestral stuff going on. What else have I got in here? I've got this. Oh yeah, this is one of my favourite patches that I've ever made on this, and it's just this fucking amazing gnarly bass. I've got some other sounds on here that I know I did end up using. In fact, I've got the pluck from the breakdown of Macabre Magnifique on here. It's not that one. It's this one. This is just sort of a classic sort of dead mousey plug.
Oh yeah, you can opening up that filter just brings it like all the way home.
I think I had the delay turned up in that. So this one, or a version of this one without all the delay, features a lot in the final track, Singularity, and this is sort of a...
That's a good chord sound.
And that features a lot in the track. Just, I think I don't use the built-in reverb. I use a Valhalla room on that just to give it a sort of more of a room reverb. Because this reverb is great, but you can't really get room reverb. There's one here called Thick Patch. I don't know. It is. All 8 voices, that's all 3 oscillators, that's all of them with the density turned up. And that's just some FM. Or was it ring mod? It might have been ring mod actually, that I've got going on. Here's a patch. If you ever heard Phantom Part 2 by Justice.
Oh yeah.
I don't know the notes, but this is the stuff.
Yeah, that sounds dead on.
I don't even think I used any sort of FM in this. No, I didn't. It's just all front panel. The only thing I did is add animate for when I couldn't get, I couldn't work out how I could send pitch information from FL to the synth. So this is what I mean by like the sort of hold button. And now all you need to do is add a really distorted, roomy kick drum, and there you are. We're in Berlin.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been Peak Time with Foxhunt. His album Unhallowed comes out January 22nd on Bandcamp. You've heard some of it today, hopefully. We'll have a link in the description for that. So get your link clickers ready. Thanks for joining me, dude.
And thanks for having me.
Jeremy, Red Means Recording. Everyone have a wonderful day.